we go looking for love in the wrong places and we don't find it.
I definitely escaped like the difficulty and the reality of life just by like seeking out partying, drinking, that type of thing.
I met like actual guys who were like running after their faith, and like those are always the guys who are like doing the boldest things. Nobody has regrets.
I think for the longest time, I didn't really understand that life is going to involve a lot of suffering and that's okay. So in college, I experienced just a lot of like difficulty with classes, with relationships, friendships, and my response was always to just like push that down. And so, yeah, I definitely escaped like the difficulty and the reality of life just by like seeking out partying, drinking, that type of thing. And it became like a really big issue and really impacted a lot of the friendships that I had. And it wasn't until, I met a missionary named Jacob Hogue, who, shout out Jacob Hogue, who he kind of introduced me to the way of life that SPO offered and to like true adventure, that I started to see how like detrimental these things were. But I'd say that was probably the primary way that I like escaped life, was just through like drinking and drugs and just like seeking the next pleasure.
I would say like in my past life, in the party scene at Arizona State, in the fraternity culture, everything was like centered around, okay, when we go out, anything can happen tonight, right? That was like our mentality. And to some extent, that was kind of like exciting. And the transition to the faith and SPO community was actually everything is off the table. Everything meaning all the things that I thought I had freedom to do that were actually leading me to death. Like, there are certain things that just aren't going to go down tonight. And I know that that's just not going to happen. And so there was that gap. There was like that little bit of excitement that I had in my past life. Everything's on the table. And so through SPO, it was the spontaneity that I was missing out on. That's what filled the gap. It was the adventures. It was true adventure. It was physical. Was going out and experiencing nature. And it wasn't just in the city. It wasn't just this sinful desire. So that was kind of what helped me replace it. And the Lord brought SPO, compared to other ministries, I'd say we do a lot of great stuff. And we have a lot of cultural memories that we look back on and say the Lord was there, the Lord looked at us in that moment, and we're like, you guys are going to be formed because of this trip. And honestly, with the fraternity, we didn't take a whole lot of trips like that. And I know I'm talking for a little bit. I just want to share two things really quick. There was a Kilimanjaro trip that I was trying to promote with the fraternity. I was the only person that went. There was another hiking trip originally where I was like, we should all do this as a brotherhood thing. Wasn't catching steam. But if it was like, we're going to have this party, we're going to have this event that's local, women, alcohol, all that stuff, it's like everybody's there, you know? So different type of adventure.
There's this, because I think what I was hearing when you both were sharing was like this reality of like learning what freedom is. And like freedom is an adventure if it's like with the Lord. But there's this analogy that I love that kind of hits to like what some of the things you were saying. And it's this concept of like a kindergarten class like goes out to their playground, but the playground like has no fence. And like the kids just like cling to the teacher and don't go play on the playground because they're literally terrified because there's no boundaries. There's just like endless possibility of danger or whatever. And then the school gets enough funding and then a fence gets put up. But the teacher like noticed the kids actually like went out and slid on the slide and swung on the swings and like had freedom to go actually be and do who they were and what they could do. And it sounds like a boundaryless life is not an adventure, is kind of like what you guys are saying, which is so ironic because that's not what we hear. We should have boundary-free lives in order to live adventurous. I just, that's what I heard in some of the things you were sharing.
As I'm listening, I'm like thinking about what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about freedom, you're talking about adventure. Like, what is that in you that like in your old life, in your new life, you're still looking for spontaneity and adventure? And when you were saying like suffering, like how do I deal with suffering? Like what is it that we're looking for? Like love, you know, like belonging. I've always been a little bit existential, I feel like.
I love it.
So for me, I'm like, like what is that in me? Like so I feel like for me, similar to you, like when I encountered suffering, I'm like, why is this like this? And so for me, I feel like trying to fill the gap was like trying to kind of either like figure out like what is going on, or to like numb the experience of like suffering, or just of like maybe like an ache for something more. Like we want something more, you know? And it's not like you just want to go to Mexico. Like there's something in your soul, like in your person, that wants something more. And gosh, like I couldn't find it. We go looking for love in the wrong places, and we don't find it. And that's like where the Lord breaks in. For me, like that's where the Lord was able to break in. So I just love, like, I feel like it's almost like transcendentals, like goodness, truth, beauty, freedom. Like I feel like we're talking about things of life that like everyone experiences, like relationships, you know, like a spring break trip. But we're touching like eternity a little bit with what we're talking about. This is just stuff that everyone experiences, but not everybody is realizing that it's like this thin string that's like held to the things of God. You know, we like wake up to that when we encounter him. Yeah.
Well said.
I think for me it was a little bit different. I think I didn't really fall into like the partying scene too much. Honestly, I kind of was just feeling like what everybody else was doing, just hunting and fishing. I come from a smaller town. It's just kind of what we did for fun. And sports a lot in high school. Definitely sports in high school, I escaped a lot. But then like going into like college and stuff, I just like skip class, like wouldn't have discipline. I'd like skip class, go fishing or hunting, or like watch YouTube, just kind of dumb stuff. And then like it wasn't until later on that I started to realize, I was like, man, like I don't have, like this is fun, but I'm not like, I don't have brothers in my life. And like we're not actually going and like doing like real things. And then it wasn't until I met like actual guys who were like running after their faith. And like those were always the guys who were like doing the boldest things. Like they were going, like my senior year, they tried to get me to go to Louisiana. And I was like, no, I can't, you know, like that was like the first time somebody tried to like really like push me. I was like, no, I can't, I'm going home for the weekend. I mean, like, I'm sure.
Hunt and fish.
Yeah, it's probably going to hunt fish, which is still freaking fun. But like, you know, just missing out like on opportunities like that like, like it is fun. But like now, like I'm actually like, going and like flying to different places, going and like serving like the poor, which I did not think would ever be something in my life. And now like it is an adventure, and it is something like I do enjoy to do.
Well, what was it like for you to go be sent to be a missionary if you were like hesitant to go to Louisiana? Like then you moved your whole life. What changed?
Yeah. A lot changed. Honestly, like I just knew like the Lord was calling me to more, and I really didn't want to go. I really wrestled with the Lord, and like to the point of just like telling him like I do not want to go, saying like I will hate this, like if I do this, like it will be terrible. And so there was a lot of wrestling, but then like once I kind of said yes, I just felt like this immense amount of peace, and I was nervous, you know, like finally I'm like getting sent down there. I'm like, this might suck.
That's
like
a risk. It's a risk.
Just genuine. It was a big risk. I was leaving my comfort
hate
zone.
It. Absolutely.
Like,
Florida's a different beast.
Yeah. And like,
shout out Florida. It's a different beast.
And I loved where I was from. You know, I love my family.
Yeah.
I still love all that stuff. I don't know. Like I've told people this. Like I will like cherish this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And like it's totally different, but it's so worth it.
What is, I'm just like wanting to ask, what is that? Like what's the more? You're like, I knew it was called a more. Like what's the more that we're talking about? Like how would you, and myself, I'm trying to think like how would I describe what is the more, you know?
I feel like after you brought that up, I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, what was the more I was looking for? And the thing that only like kept coming to mind is I literally could give you my resume, and I've done everything possible to have like any credential for anything. Like
done a lot.
President of my school, lead in the play, like played 3 sports, was on varsity teams, like went to states for golf twice.
Yeah.
Like
in the world's eyes.
I had everything. Like I had the more. And I think what I remember going into college experiencing was this question of, but am I known? Like, am I, Olivia, known by all of these people or all of these things? Like, are they telling me who I am? Do they know who I wrestled with that a lot of, like, yeah, what more can I know? Like, myself. I think is like a really big question. And my whole freshman year, I was really, really lukewarm. Like I would go to Mass on Sunday, but then I would go to a bunch of clubs and organizations on campus, and then I would go to a bunch of clubs also on campus. And I just like constantly felt just very like, maybe I'll be known here, or maybe I'll be known here. And like my resume just like built up. I just had done all the things, and I still was very empty. And it wasn't until my sophomore year, the elevator, it's just a classic story, but I was going to a bar and I was pregame with my friends, and there was 12 of us, and we all got in this elevator, which 12, funny. Anyway, there was 12 of us, we got in this elevator. The max occupancy I think was like 8 or something, so we were like way over the weight limit. And I'm thinking like, this is so much faster than the stairs, whatever. In the 3 floors it took for us to go down this elevator, I got the bright idea to jump. And so we were stuck for literally 2.5 hours. And the people in this elevator, the people in this elevator were like passing out. They were like punching the walls.
Oh my gosh.
I was like calling for help, but no one was responding. It got so hot. Like I was drenched in sweat when I got out of the elevator. And I remember like getting kicked off of like the premises of this place where I was with my friends. And I'm sitting on the side of the road, and my mom's coming to get me because I only live like 20 minutes away. And I just was like, what the heck happened in my life? Like, this is not it. And I'm like clearly not finding it. So like, what's missing? Like, come on, Lord, shoot me a bone here. And literally all he said was just like, I want to tell you who you are. And I think that was like the first time I actually heard God's voice, because I was so low in my life. And I got home after my mom had picked me up, and one thing changed, and then the next thing changed, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and like the adventure of Christ began. But it started with me being like, I'm not gonna underage drink, and that cost me a bunch of friendships, and it cost me a bunch of activities that I couldn't do anymore, or like places I couldn't go. But I gained so much more because I wrote a blank check, and man, was the like return tenfold. Like it was so
sounds like it was like a
so powerful.
severe mercy.
Yes, he should have let me go down the elevator. I'm the only person in that entire elevator who has changed their life.
Wow.
Like I know all of them, and I like keep
got
up with them on social media. It's just me, and part of me is like, why me? But now I'm like, why me? And it's a good question to ask.
Who am I, Lord?
Like, why am I the one that you've asked to go on this adventure for your people and for me to know my identity, like on this side of heaven? What? That's crazy, right? Yeah. That's an adventure in and of itself, to know your identity on this side of heaven. My gosh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Going back to your question, like you're like, what is it? What's the more? It's Jesus Christ. I needed permission to actually be sacrificial. So it's really easy to put yourself at the center of the universe, but actually life becomes very dull and boring when you're always pouring your own gifts back into yourself. When Jesus revealed himself to me and it was unlocked that I could pour out to other people and then be filled up by God, that's like the cycle of life. That is what filled me up, because then I realized, man, it's like when you get gifts for Christmas and you love getting, and then you turn a certain age and you way much more prefer, like you love giving and you love making the gift or buying it. It's way more fun to give. That like flipped spiritually. And I don't know how old I was, but it is so much better to give, and especially because I'm not like giving really myself. Like I'm totally being poured into, because if it was just me, I'd be depleted by now. And I have gave so much more than I have. So that's how I know. That's like my belief in God right there.
When you talk about pouring out, it reminds me of, I think it's John Paul II, and he says like we're ultimately made to love and to be loved, but not just like, I don't know, the culture thinks we're made to be loved and to love, but it looks different. It looks different. There's a little bit of a twisted truth there. I feel like the culture's like we're made to kind of grasp. I think the culture's really insecure, but like we're made to know who we are. Like there's this confirmation of our identity, and it does, like it's like it propels us. Like love, real love is God, like Jesus Christ, and he doesn't just like stop at a point of selfishness. He pours out. So that's just what that made me think of when you were saying.
And like the Dead Sea, Like,
Yeah.
are you guys familiar with the Dead Sea and like the geography of it?
That you can
Say
close
more.
in.
It's like, so I don't know complete geography, so have mercy, but it is the end of a bunch of like natural rivers in the Middle East. And because it's the end, everything just pours into it, but it has no out. And so there's no life in it. Like, that's why it's called the Dead Sea.
Okay,
which
I
is
didn't know
ironic that it's the Dead Sea has no life in it, but is being poured into. And I've often thought about that in, like, I don't want to be a Dead Sea Christian. Like, I would like an outflow to happen. Kind of like what you were saying of like a life given over. And there's a catechism quote, right, about this where it's like, man is like, finds himself in the sincere gift of himself. Yeah. So like the searching that we're all doing. Yeah. We like
Catechism.
actually find ourselves. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But like you're set free when you give of yourself in a free gift.
I mean, even in like a very basic sense, I mean, it's like when you like get, like when somebody gives you a gift, like it's like nice. But when you like work for something and you like earn it, it's like, wow, like I did that. And like that's nice on like a very like worldly level. But like when somebody pours into you, like in a spiritual level, and then like you like actually go out, you're like, this like changed my life. I want to like change your life. And you get to introduce people to God. And you know, like the Lord works through you. Like that's when it's like, wow.
It's really
I'm
humbling.
really seeing this.
Yeah.
Really
And
humbling.
it helps both of you. It's bringing both of you closer to the Lord.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so generous.
I think an important aspect too, for me at least, was like true brotherhood and experiencing like true relationship. I don't know what it was for y'all, but until I met SPO, I realized that I had never had like a true friend, or like maybe only a few, in like one or two
What made
in the
you
past
realize
like
that?
20 years. It was really the first conversation that I had with a missionary. Yeah, I got it because when I went to college, I was a freshman. You know, you go to a lot of events, you meet a lot of people, you immediately join a group chat of like 50, well, dudes in my case, and like right away, every weekend you're going out, you're doing stuff with them, but all of it's just utility. You know, all of it's like, what can I get from you? What connections do you have? You know, can I get beer from you? That type of thing. And I experienced within the first few months that I like wasn't at all talking about the things that really mattered, and I wasn't able to like share my heart with people. And if it was out of a place of like use, like I want to be vulnerable with you, so I can get something from you, you know. But the first conversation I had with Jacob was very just like a heart-to-heart conversation, very intentional, and I knew right away that he had no ulterior motive. He just wanted to get to know me and
That's
love
a
me
big
as an older
difference.
brother. Yeah. And I experienced, it was in that moment that I started to experience like what my identity was, that like he was actually my brother and that I was his son for the first time. And from that moment, I started to experience like what is real brotherhood, what is real friendship. And it changed my perspective on a lot of things. And so doing it together, I mean, like serving, giving, I think that's so crucial. Like having your people, having your group, your unity, that's something that's been so impactful for me, and just added to the adventure tenfold, is having a group of people to do it with.
Jacob freaking hug.
Yeah.
Speaking of brothers that like brought us around, I just want to have this really quick, short, 10-second moment. We're gonna say on 3 the brother that got us in. We're gonna say his first and last name, and we'll just do a countdown, and we'll look right into the camera. You ready for this?
This one. Yeah.
This one. 3, 2, 1.
JP
JP Bagul.
Yeah.
Shout out JP! Come on,
We
man.
love him.
It's great to be
Dude's
on
a
this
stud.
with you.
That dude's a stud. And yeah, that was also like same experience. Like the first time I talked to JP was the first time I'd been to a mass in a while, senior year of school, and right away, just like he just like loved me. Dude. Like, he complimented my mullet. I turn around, this freaking dude comes up to me, like, "Why are you talking to me?" And he's just like the nicest guy. And yeah, just know like there was no use. There was no like he just wanted me to like. He just wanted to know me. You know, like just like you were saying.
Yeah.
And like that guy's been like a true brother for me, and like was my sponsor for RCIA and like all that stuff.
You know, like you guys are talking about your brotherhood, and I'm just thinking about the impact of God. Like, what? Like it's like a web, like this
Yeah.
like web that he weaves, like
Yeah.
the same dude. Who knew? You know, like
The gift.
I don't know. He's like a God of fullness.
Mm-hmm.
He gives the 100-fold. You know, like
Yeah.
we don't even know. We don't know. You know, like he's vast. Like the possibility is vast, and I feel like you become more yourself when you come to know the Lord.